Hi everyone, and welcome to a special REFSIX Euros weekly that we're going to be running throughout the Euros. As always, I'm joined by my co-host John. John, how you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. Very good.
And throughout this special, the Euros, we thought it would be great to get a guest that can talk about a little bit of their experience by being at the Euros. So we're really honoured and humbled to be joined by Phil Sharp. Before I introduce Phil, I'm going to go through a little bit of a roll call about his experience. So Phil was a Premier League assistant referee, was also nominated to be a FIFA assistant referee, has officiated at the Euros in 2000 and 2004, the Olympics in 2004, and 2 World Cups, 2002 and 2006. Phil ran the line in the World Cup final in 2002 to Pierluigi Collina. That was a Brazil-Germany game. So if you've listened to me and John in the past and thought, great, they're giving some really cool experience from a grassroots level, we've now gone the complete upper end of the spectrum and have got someone who can share some wisdom from a different side of the game that we were always talking about. So Phil, hopefully that did a little bit of justice, but I really appreciate you coming on and being part of our chats. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yeah, good to be here.
Brilliant. How have you been able to watch much of the Euros so far?
I've probably seen half the games because I went away with my sons for a couple of days. But I've been keeping up to date with the scores and watched the highlights and some really good football and some really good officiating by the match officials. So it's all looking good.
No, brilliant. And today what we thought we'd do is go through kind of match day one, look at specifically some incidents that happened in the games and kind of give, like we always do, a referee's opinion and thoughts on what happened. I said the other day when I was talking to some friends, I felt like the consistency amongst the referees has been incredible because it almost feels like you could watch every game and the referee was almost the same in every game, I would say. I don't know if you felt that too.
Yes, but that's probably because UEFA always have a pre-tournament course. This year was in Turkey in May, and what the referees committee and the instructors would inform the referees, the assistants and the VARs is that this is what we want. You know, we want a uniform message. We want to, as you say, it doesn't matter who the referee is. We're going to have consistency through every game. And I think that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. And you know, I don't think normally after at least one round of games, there's a referee's name gets banded out there that says, that there's, that referee's had a poor game, but I don't think that's happened at all across these games, which is fascinating. And it will kind of relate to some of the topics we're going to discuss today. They're really not big incidents. They're just there's one major incident that we're going to get into, but the topics the incidents are really us trying to just find some content to talk about because it was that good a performance from the officials. So great to see. Before we go into it, I just wanted to give some news that Michael Oliver and Antti Taylor have both got an appointment this week. So Michael Oliver gets his first appointment. It will be Hungary against France this weekend. And the other game, Antti Taylor's got his second game, and it's a big game. It's Portugal against Germany. So we're obviously cheering on England as a football team, but also the English officials, and hopefully they won't get the final because England will get through. But if England don't get through, hopefully one of those guys will be representing us in the final. We'll see. So yeah, let's get straight into the topics or the incidents. And the first one that we want to talk about is the one that kind of widely got talked about in the refereeing kind of world, because it's probably one that really referees highlighted rather than fans. Fans probably felt confused by it, but mainly referees. So it was in the first game. Danny McElly was the referee for the game, and it was Turkey against Italy. And there was a corner kick that was played by where one of the Italian midfielders was slightly off the pitch behind the goal line, and his teammate basically passed the ball, and the guy from off the pitch, came onto the pitch and played the ball, and there was an offside decision given. So this was the one that was kind of a bit of a confusing one for people, because in law it states you can't be offside from a corner kick, right? So I'm pretty clear on what I think happened, but John, before we go to Phil, I want to see what your thoughts were on this one.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm still pretty confused about it. I originally thought that the players should be cautioned for stepping off the pitch and trying to gain an advantage. And I've spoken to some of my friends about it, but I honestly still really don't know what to do or how to go about that one. So.
And that's one point raised by people, and I think it would be really harsh personally to give a caution for that, because I don't think he's really trying to gain he's literally just like a few centimeters off the pitch. Isn't feeling like a massive gain of an advantage, but to me it feels like it was just a genuine and honest mistake. But keen to hear Phil, did you see anything in this incident that kind of you think, oh, actually no, it's for this, or are you leaning towards, oh, could have just been a mistake?
Yeah, sure. I watched the game live, and at the time I thought, what's happened there? It was really strange, but only if you know the laws of the game. You know, as a fan, as a spectator, you probably would have just thought it's offside and accepted it. Even the Italian captain questioned the referee. You see the footage, that what was that for? But yeah, you can't be offside from a goal kick, a throw-in, or a corner kick directly. Mm-hmm. So if it was to touch another player and then be offside, but directly, the kicker played the ball. The teammate came, we could say, back onto the field to play to play the ball, and that was directly. So therefore, it couldn't be offside. If the ball had been crossed in, and an attacker was standing, we say, in the goal, actually like in the net area, then you would still allow the goal because that's directly from a corner kick.
Yeah.
The other observation that I made was that the assistant referee's flag was not immediate. Mm-hmm. So to me, there was a delay to it. So was that VAR saying that's an offside situation? So then the assistant raised the flag? We never know. I've not seen anything published by UEFA to explain what happened. Sometimes they do that, but in this occasion, we're led to believe that it was an offside offence, but it wasn't in law.
Yeah. So basically a mistake, right? An honest mistake that just potentially happened, right?
Well, you say that, but a bit later on in the game, Italy had another corner where they set up exactly the same, and you can clearly see the assistant referee speaking to the players as if to say, "Don't do that again, because you'll be flagged offside." But if therefore the original decision was the assistant referees, then surely VAR should be saying, "No, it's not offside." But he then went and told the players that it would be again.
Yeah, no, really interesting. It's something that hopefully someone, maybe after the tournament is the right time to get an answer on that one. But to your point though, VAR shouldn't really be getting involved in those situations, because it's not one of the four things that VAR should be talking about, right? It's not a goal or a penalty, etc. So, but you're right, there was a delay. So it's kind of a mystery that we're going to probably have to wait and see to find out exactly what happened. But it feels comforting that you, with your experience, and us and all the people that we've spoken to, we were a bit dumbfounded by it. So it's something that we'll have to wait and see if there's a specific new thing that's come out, but it doesn't seem that way.
Yeah.
Perfect. So interesting game. But Danny and his team actually have already done their second game in the tournament. Danny's definitely a great referee, and their team have had great success over the last 2 years. So I'm sure it's just a minor blip on a very small incident. So, but let's move into probably the biggest incident, in not just from a refereeing standpoint, but from a complete football standpoint. It was quite a shocking incident. I was watching this game live, and I was brought to tears by what I was seeing. But basically, it was in around the 43rd minute of the Danish game, the Denmark game between Finland. What you see is Christian Eriksen collapses on the field of play. And within a few seconds, Anthony Taylor and a lot of the players are basically saying, something's not right here. We need the medics. And he's calling, you see the referee and the players calling people on. And over 30 seconds, a minute, you start to see, well, this isn't just a normal injury. There's something a bit more serious happening here, to the point where all of a sudden you're seeing chest compressions on Christian Eriksen, and that doesn't look good. And then the captain has called his players, and what I thought was pretty amazing, and a pretty great piece of kind of humanity, which was, as players, let's try and keep as much privacy around what's going on as possible. I thought that was a really great piece of captaining, just because you don't want to see it. And in truth, at the point, I thought we'd lost him because BBC cut the coverage. And I was just, I've never seen something like that. There's been times in the past where it's happened in games, but I've never experienced it live watching it. It was pretty devastating. Since then, what we came to find out was Christian Eriksen had a cardiac arrest, but he was managed to be brought around on the field and was taken to hospital and is now recovering. Which is fantastic news, and I'm super pleased that happened, because that was difficult to watch. But what I want to really talk about is the officiating here, and a little bit about kind of the decisions of the teams to come back and play that day and abandoning it, and all of the stuff that would have gone around on officiating there. John, have you ever had anything? Obviously, I'm pretty confident you've never had someone have a cardiac arrest on the field, but is there times where you've had to abandon a game for an injury? Has that happened?
Yes. So a guy broke his leg on an evening kickoff, and we had to wait for the ambulance. And evening kickoffs, especially at county league level, the lights have to go off at 10 o'clock. So I have to abandon the game. I was on the line. I was only 16 at the time, but that's the only time it's ever happened. It's strange because you're not a medic, you don't know what to do, but everyone's looking at you, being like, "Well, what do we do now?" Yeah. And the questions you're asking, the exact same questions as them, like, I don't know, what do we do? And watching Anthony Taylor do it, he seemed to be fairly in control in terms of, like, he was at the benches talking to them both. Obviously, we don't know what he was saying, but he seemed fairly calm and in control. And I think he got a lot of plaudits this weekend. So I think it was great to see from everyone.
I felt like, from what I watched, so what I'll describe my feelings, and then we'll go to Phil. But one, there was the quick and instant reaction from Anthony and the players. So I want to share the congratulations amongst everyone, because it wasn't just Anthony Taylor, it was the whole of the teams and his officiating team and the players. But his quick reaction to get people on, I think it was very good that it sounds poorly worded, but it was lucky that it happened where the play was happening, because if it happened a little bit further away from where play was, there may have been an extra delay because no one would have seen it. Luckily, people were in and around where the collapse happened and the ball was there, so it was lucky in that sense. But from what I saw, Anthony Taylor almost had, and this is just me guessing, but almost had a plan when he went over to the benches. He's like, okay, well, if this is happening, this and this is the outcome. If this happens, then this, and it's almost like he was telling the Danish and the Finnish managers, here are the different options that we have based on what's about to unfold. And I thought that was great, because he was kind of informing them that these are all the options. He's thought about it. And kind of giving them a little bit of input into the decisions too. This is just completely me thinking from what I've seen on the pictures. But I'm going to stop talking because I want to hear what Phil has to say about this. Has this ever happened to you in a game, anything like this?
Thankfully not. I did have a game postponed after 1 minute, and then we had to wait about an hour, and then came back and played the 44 minutes, had half time, and then played the second half. It was in, I think it was March 2007, ironically, a Euro qualifier between Norway and Bosnia. and the spectators for the away side started throwing on, they call them fireworks or Roman candles, but there was so much smoke you couldn't see my half of the field of play. Some of them were still on fire. And this happened after 1 minute. Mike Riley was the ref, and he waited in the centre with the players, kept warm, kicking the ball about for about 2 minutes. And then by 4 minutes, we were all off the pitch. What then happens is a pre-prepared meeting of the referees, the referee observer, a match delegate, and like a security officer or safety and security officer. And this is all pre-planned the day before any international match. I used to sit in a meeting along with my colleagues, but now I think it's just the fourth official goes along to the meeting and they hear from the ambulance service, the fire brigade, the police officer, security, and they've got an action plan that if anything were to happen, we're going to be doing this, this, and this.
Okay.
And so the pictures that you see of Anthony coming to the touchline, speaking to the head coaches of the two teams, you're probably thinking, well, who are those other guys there? Definitely the UEFA match delegate, who is there to oversee the match. And they almost have the final decision, would possibly be in contact with UEFA HQ as well. But there's a dialogue going on, which you could say international referees are prepared for, because every match there's this security briefing the day before. So, yeah, not taking away anything from anybody, because Anthony responded very quickly. But yeah, it's not a one-person decision; it's a collective.
Yeah. No, that's exactly kind of my point getting across. Everyone should be praised for the way they reacted on the day. But you kind of touched on, from your experience, something really interesting. So basically what has come out is that UEFA, in conversations with the teams, I think there was a few options bandied about how to complete the game. And what was decided was, a few hours later, they would restart the game from the 43rd minute. They would see out the half, and then they would play 5 minutes of half time, and then they would play the final second half. So it seems like the decision was actually out of the match officials' control there. It was more a UEFA and teams discussion. But how do you keep yourself kind of mentally motivated? Motivated is the right word, but then also how do you try and eliminate what's happened in the, can you even get rid of what's happened in earlier on in that day when you go and officiate the rest of the game, specifically in Anthony's? I guess he did, because he had a great performance after that, but it must be difficult, right?
Yeah, extremely difficult. I don't think you can ever take away that sort of trauma, and something that you said about 10 minutes ago is watching it live on TV. I was stunned. And the two most precious things in my life are my sons, Ben and Jamie.
Yeah.
And they were out and they knocked on the door to surprise me. And I didn't know what to say to them. And they were my sons. It was like, oh my God, I think somebody may have, there's been a fatal incident on the telly. And it took me a while to sort of just compose myself for them. And they were going, Dad, are you okay?
Yeah.
And that fear of loss of life, really, really shakes you. I think that as referees, all of us, you could say we're special people, why we do it. And we tend to sometimes be looked upon like a policeman, having all the answers. Sometimes we're expected to be a first aider. What are you going to do, ref? And the one thing that I can instill in people is that calmness and coolness to just relax and try and, things will be resolved, but not if we're running around like a headless chicken. And so many, many years ago, when the Twin Towers were struck, I was in Rome for a Champions League game against Real Madrid. and the decision was made by UEFA that certain games would go ahead and some wouldn't. So we went ahead with that game, and I've seen the images on the telly all day, and it's like, oh my God, what next? But your professionalism gets you through it. So for any referee, whether you're doing grassroots or you're in the professional game or the international game, we sort of have an ability to overcome things sometimes. Not to say that we just ignore it, but we have to almost put it to one side and be professional and do the job that we're there to do.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, we almost compartmentalize it, right? And say, I'll park it here and I'll come and review it later on.
Yes.
But right now, I've just got to focus and be tunnel vision. Yeah.
Exactly right. Yeah.
No, brilliant. And interestingly on this, so as referees, I remember, I don't know if it was part of I don't think it was. I did a coaching badge, and as part of my coaching badge, I had to learn CPR. And it must have been coaching and not refereeing. I'm pretty confident. But as referees, the FA have some online courses around CPR and things like that. But if it happened in one of our games, Phil, with your experience, and one of the things I forgot to mention was that you were a county RDO, a referee development officer at a county. What would your advice be to grassroots referees? Because on one hand, there's a lot of fear about getting involved in any form of injury just in case you cause more harm, versus, hold on a minute, if I've got the skills or the training to do something, should I step in and help, right? So, okay, this is quite severe. This is really at the end of this is a life or death matter. I think it's a pretty obvious answer. We have to get involved, right? And but at what stages do we get involved in terms of an injury like this? Well, this or something a little bit less drastic, maybe like a broken.
You've made some really good points there. I actually recently, because I'm an FA tutor on referee courses, I needed to do my first aid in football certificate because it had expired. And because we couldn't attend any face-to-face workshops, I was doing everything online. And you're right, the FA, through FA Learning, have a cardiac arrest module. It's about 35 minutes. And it's got some videos, and it's got like little quiz in there. Would you do this or would you do that? Really straightforward to follow. I have to say it's 35 minutes, valuable time for everybody, whether you're a referee, a parent, a coach, or even a player. And I think that it's everybody's responsibility to have that duty of care, you could say, that if it was to happen, either on the field of play or down the street, is that you're prepared. And some referees, as you sort of alluded to, might go, oh, well, I don't want to get sued if I do something wrong, or what if I don't do this? I have to say, guys, is that, and I've spoken to first aid personnel about this, is no referee has ever been sued for trying to save somebody's life. So if we try to save somebody's life and we give it our best shot, surely that's better than just standing back and saying, oh no, I don't want to, just in case. Yeah. So, if you do the 35-minute online course, it gives you a better understanding. You might not be there on your own, so it helps that somebody else has got a bit of knowledge, that you can sort of rely on as well. Because even in the video, it says if you get tired on the compressions, that you've got somebody else that takes over, but you work together as a team, counting and working together. So yeah, I think we've just got to stay sort of calm and collected and be prepared to get involved.
No, brilliant. That's great advice. And what we'll do in the YouTube description and the podcast description, we'll put a link to that FA course so everyone can do it. Brilliant. So now we're going to move into kind of the resumption of the game. It happened a bit later on that evening, and Finland took the lead. And then later on in the game, there was a foul on Yusuf Poulsen, I believe, that led to Anthony Taylor awarding a penalty. Now, this was, to me, a really interesting decision because on 3 or 4 clips, 3 or 4 angles, it didn't look like there was much contact at all. I was actually expecting VAR to come in and say, Anthony, you need to have a look at this. But then there was one angle that showed some contact that actually I got on board with. I thought that's definitely a penalty. But it was one of those that if that angle wasn't shown, everyone would have thought, oh, there's a mistake here. So really keen to hear what your thoughts are on this. Did you think it was a soft penalty? Did you think it was a definite penalty? Do you think it wasn't a penalty at all? So Phil, do you want to start?
Thanks. Yeah, I watched this game, obviously, because it came back on later on. And when the incident happened, I just thought, oh, the player's gone down. It's not a penalty. I didn't think it was simulation. I just thought there was, minor contact, but not a penalty. And again, I'm always looking at the match officials to see their reactions. And it wasn't an immediate decision. There was almost like, and I think the commentator's saying, Anthony Taylor's looking long and hard at this, something along those lines. And then he gives the decision. And I think the captain comes up to him and he's shaking his head to say, yeah, definite. And at first I thought, I don't think that's a penalty. But like you, when you see the different angles, there is one angle. So again, I'd be interested to know what you guys think. Do you think VAR told him it was a penalty because the angle was not the referee's angle, was it?
No, that's a great pick out because that's exactly what I was gonna talk about. So, John, do you want to just get your thoughts in, and I'll try and answer Phil's question.
I generally thought it was penalty straight away. I just thought, oh yeah, fair enough. I thought it was just like a clumsy tackle, and I thought, because obviously we sit from quite a high angle, I thought one player came in a little bit too quick, and I thought that it looked like he'd nicked him before the ball because of the way that the two players were coming in. So I was like, oh, fair enough, pen. So that was my opinion. I thought, yeah, pen straight away.
So in terms of VAR, Phil, my understanding is like there is no communication there until the decision's made. That's my belief. Whether that happens in practice or not is a different story. But if I don't think VAR is telling him, or it shouldn't be happening, that VAR is telling him before the whistle's blown, hey, that's a penalty. Like that shouldn't be happening. Whether it does in practice or not, I don't know. But so I'm intrigued by what you mentioned because it was there's two things you mentioned which are really interesting. One is it took a bit of time, right, for him to make the decision. When I say a bit of time, maybe 2 or 3 seconds. So it's not a huge amount of time, but you can obviously see he's probably replaying it in his head. Yeah. And maybe getting some input from the assistants, right? What are the communication lines between the referee and the assistant in that short space of time?
Because of the vicinity in the penalty area where the incident happened, assistant referee number 2 is too far away. It's on the wrong side of the penalty area. And you'd have to say that assistant referee number 1, the credibility, the distance, and the fourth official is too far away. If you remember in recent times where we used to have AARs by the goal, then that might have helped the referee make that decision. But I think that was the referee's call and couldn't use the other match officials to help him on this occasion.
Okay.
The distance too far away.
No, brilliant. And then the second point you made was around the angle. So I agree with you. I think the angle that the camera angle shows, which is clear evidence that there was contact, and probably leads me to say it was a penalty, was kind of from behind the goal. So almost the complete opposite to what Anthony had. Now, we don't have Anthony Taylor's view, so we can't definitively say he definitely didn't see it. But is there an element of experience, and do referees ever guess? Do they use experience to kind of understand that actually, although I may not have seen the contact, I'm pretty confident that contact has been made there? Or is that a completely dangerous game to play?
Yeah, I wouldn't advise that for anybody. I was once given an advice by a top observer, don't guess. I was an assistant referee and I had to judge whether the ball had gone over the goal line for a goal kick or corner. And the goalkeeper sort of shielded their body so that I couldn't actually see the ball. their back covered the ball from me seeing it, and I thought, oh, that's gone over. I'm going to give a corner. And whether it was or whether it wasn't, the observer said, you guessed because you couldn't actually see the ball. And he said, it's better to say, look, I couldn't see it, therefore I'm not going to guess, rather than guess and be wrong or prove to be wrong.
Yeah, no, that's good advice. So yeah, maybe because we don't have Anthony's view, we can't conclusively say he did or didn't see anything. But as we said at the start of this incident, we didn't see Anthony Taylor's view, so we can't conclusively say anything or not. But it was a penalty. It was a correct decision. And like I said at the start of the whole podcast, we're just trying to find some pieces of interesting clips to talk about, because most of the decisions we thought were perfect in the whole match day one. So we'll move on and a little bit more quick on the next two kind of incidents that we want to touch on, but really straightforward. We probably just need to talk about the first red card, the only red card of the tournament, and probably a really easy red card to give. It was 2 yellow cards. It was Poland's Krakowiak who made a challenge in the first half, a challenge in the second half. Both were reckless and really, really straightforward. Nothing really to talk about, really.
That was an easy red.
There were no other red cards in match day one, which kind of shows just how maybe referees are managing situations better, maybe because of the players a little bit nervous in the first game. They just want to get the first game, hopefully get a win. But we might start to see the red card count pick up as match day 2 and match day 3 pick up, when games are really, really, do or die type games. Did you find that, Phil, in your tournaments that you officiated, that as the tournament went on, the discipline, that because the game started to have a little bit more on them, there was a little bit more tension there?
Yeah, sometimes, but also, in any tournament, they sort of have regulations where the caution count doesn't add up. So that, for the quarterfinals, those cautions will be expunged and you almost have a clean sheet, which you could say is to protect those flair players that we want to watch playing football rather than they're in the stand because they're suspended. But going back to the Poland-Slovakia game, I thought, the first caution is pulled the player back.
Easy.
Is it a promising attack? Well, they've certainly come away with the ball, and he's done it deliberately, not tried to play the ball. So as referees, we should be, aware of that. And for the second yellow card at first, I thought, that's careless. Mm-hmm. And this is an interesting point because I didn't see this game live. I saw it back on highlights, and actually he treads on the opponent's foot. You can't say stamp because he didn't stamp on him, and that is where it became reckless. Whereas the upper body challenge, I just thought was careless, but he put his boot on the other player's foot. And that's what the second yellow card was for. And as referees, sometimes we're so focused with seeing what's happening upper body that we forget to look at what's happening, on the ground. And so I thought it was a really good spot. The teammates of the offender were almost appealing with the ref. What was that for? How can it be a second yellow? But when you see it back and you see what he does with his foot, not violent conduct, but just a second yellow card, which equaled his red card. So as referees, we have to be aware of what players are doing. And
I think that incident, in terms of and you put it pretty correctly in my eyes, a tread on the foot is something that has happened quite a lot in the tournament and has been equally given a yellow card for all of them. So Phil Foden against Croatia was very similar. Again, I had the same reaction. I thought, that was harsh. And then you watch it back and you're like, okay, I get where it's coming from. So it was a great spot. And then this one, I think, is going to cause a little bit of debate because already me and John have spoken about it and we have a completely difference in opinion. So before we taint Phil's mind, Phil, there was And this is just, I'm super excited by Mbappe in this tournament. I think he's going to be incredible to watch as the tournament progresses. But he started about 10 yards behind Hummels. He overtakes him. He gets into the box, and Hummels manages to track back, makes a challenge on, I'm not going to say the player or the ball, just there's a challenge that happens. The referee's in a great position. He managed to keep up with play and has a good angle. And he doesn't award a penalty. Now, I'm not going to tell you what me and John think, so I'm really interested to see what you. But the good thing is me and John have a difference of opinion. So one thinks pen, one thinks no pen. So you're almost a decider here.
Okay. Whenever you watch games on TV and you hear the commentators, they sometimes refer to the positioning of the defender as being on the wrong side. And Hummels can't possibly get that ball because he's going to take down Mbappe, isn't he? And the only way he can get the ball is through Mbappe's legs. It's a really strange challenge. And I've not seen that too many times. But the thing that the referee used, and this is again another piece of advice, whether you think it's a penalty or not, because there was minor contact at some stage, is if Hummels had not played the ball, then the ball would have carried on in the same direction towards the goal. But in fact, the ball veers off to the right, which indicates that the defender did play the ball, which I think you can see back on different angles. What you also have to think about, because we hear this all the time from us, is ref, I played the ball. If you play the ball, but you also play the man, then that is potentially a foul, and in this case, potentially a penalty kick. If the referee were to award a penalty kick, it's only a penalty kick and a yellow card because the defender attempted to play the ball. It wouldn't be a red card. But in this case, the referee has seen the deviation of the movement of the ball and again taken a picture of it and said, he must have played the ball. He has played the ball. Therefore, it's not a penalty kick. But from different angles, it looks like there is some contact. But is that enough contact to give the penalty? Or do you say, brilliant tackle or brilliant tackle for the ball?
Yeah. So are you staying on the fence?
Yeah.
I think the second. I think brilliant tackle. Like I can't. He definitely makes a little bit of contact with Mbappe. You have this old adage of you can't make a challenge from behind, right? Because it's a little bit of a surprise to the attacker, maybe. I just thought it was a great chat. I have no doubt he did make contact with Mbappe before the ball, but I don't know if it was enough to say that was a foul. And so I say great decision, no penalty. So, John?
I, however, say the other way. I think, as you said at the start, he's the wrong side of Mbappe. And that particular battle of the day is the biggest mismatch in pace I think I've ever seen. And I think Hummels knows that he's got to go for it. And it is a bit gung-ho. And he's gone through Mbappe, touched Mbappe's like shins on the way through and caught him on the way through and then got the ball. So I think it's a pen.
Okay. Do you know what? I think that something I was going to touch on anyway regarding what happens at a tournament for match officials is that they review games. They obviously have a team debrief with the referee observer and members of the referees committee. But then they'll show certain clips to all the referees to say this was a excellent decision, or these are examples of things where we need to develop and work on. And I think that that's the sort of clip that they might even use at a press conference to sort of say, referee was in a good position, the ball moved direction, and a correct decision. Or if you don't hear anything about it, then it might be, John, as you feel, that maybe a penalty. But if it should have been a penalty, would VAR have come in and said that should have been a penalty?
They should have if they thought it was a clear and obvious error. So because all three of us are kind of on the fence, we're not 100% sure. That shows that VAR really can't get involved if it's kind of that grey area. If it's definitely that is one where I think you support the referee gives the penalty and you support the referee doesn't give the penalty. It's not a clear decision. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, but the point to note for all referees is if the ball had carried on in the same direction towards the goal, then the defender may have touched the ball, but it's more likely that they did not, and therefore it would have been a foul and a penalty. But because the ball changed direction, and we clearly see in a different clip that he did make contact with the ball, that helps you make that decision.
No, brilliant.
Really good.
So Phil, it was a great one. I thought it was a great decision, and that was an interesting referee appointment because he's actually the kind of second referee in Spain behind Leos. So it was great to see him get that appointment and so on. So England, Scotland tonight. We've got referee is Leos, who is actually another Spanish official who was the Champions League final referee, which I think is a great appointment. Almost a bigger game than the Champions League final, maybe. Any predictions? Are you strong in England's camp?
Obviously, because I'm English. But do you know what? I watch every game and just hope that it's going to be an exciting, entertaining game. I know sometimes teams play defensively to stop the other team from scoring, but I'd much rather watch and be involved in games where there's goals and, we played really well, but, we got beaten by the better team. I think Scotland will definitely be up for it because it's the old firm, the old sort of rivalry that they've got there. As long as people stay calm and England have got their heads on them, I'm expecting them to win.
So we know that the officials at the tournament are staying together. I think they're in Switzerland. And obviously, because of the tournaments all over Europe, the referees who aren't there are at the games. But do the referees watch the games together? And do they? And if you're English, so one, do they watch the games together? But if you're English, really, are you supporting England, or are you somewhat in the back of your head thinking, kind of want England to go out as early as possible so it gives me a better chance as an English official to progress?
Yeah, I read somewhere recently that Mark Clattenburg made comment about this, that he always wanted England to get knocked out so that he would have a better chance of doing the final. But Mark was such a good referee anyway that he had a good chance of doing the final, as long as England didn't get there.
Yeah.
But I never thought like that. I always wanted England to do well because what it's like back home, that the whole country is a better place when there's a football tournament on and England have got to the quarterfinals and, you're going to watch the semi-final and hope it doesn't go to penalties. And everyone's so excited about it, is that it's better for the nation that the English football team does really, really well, especially after, what we've all been through in the last, year and a half, is that would just be awesome. If England don't make it to the final, we've also got to be mindful that if Wales don't make it to the final and Scotland don't make it to the final, then an English referee has an opportunity to be appointed. I was watching with interest yesterday that obviously the Dutch referee can referee Belgium, but English referees we can't do. Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and to some extent Ireland if there was a tournament, because we're all part of that UK Great Britain. But
I never knew that actually. No, I actually never knew that. So you never officiated any Wales or Scottish or Northern Irish game ever?
I did one Scottish game, and that was a friendly against South Africa, where it was almost like, and a Scottish referee would come down and do an English game against somebody. But home international countries don't officiate each other.
Interesting. Brilliant.
But the Spanish referee for tonight is sort of calm, on the verge of laid back. It's almost like, are you taking this seriously? But can you imagine if you had a referee that was so sort of fired up themselves that it would be fireworks? So yeah, a good appointment, and a sensible appointment, you could say. But no, all referees are there on merit, and everybody could officiate any game that they're given. Going back to your question about watching games together, yeah, a tournament, they normally have a room with at least one, if not two, large screen TVs where all the referees, and I say referees meaning assistants as well, would watch games, because you want to see the game, but you want to see how your colleagues are doing. Being very supportive of one another, wishing each other good luck when they go off to games, when they come back, well done, brilliant decisions, how are you? It's a family. Some people might think, oh, am I there individually? And I hope, I do this and they do. It doesn't work like that. Everybody is there for each other, supportive, encouragement. So yeah, we'd all watch games together. When I changed roles and became like an assistant referee coach in the last Euros in France and the one before that in Poland, Ukraine, I used to have like my little notebook, making notes in the big room, and everyone was. What do you think, Phil? Do you think it's this or the? In the end, I used to then go and sit in my room, because I could then focus on the match rather than everybody making comment and stuff like that. But yeah, as a match,
so they're super engaged in every decision.
Yes, yeah. You just like we've had on that, was it a penalty or not? You would have referees in the same room saying, "Oh, I thought it was a corner. I thought it was a goal kick. I thought it was a throw-in," or any decision. But everybody is supportive. There is nobody going anything negative.
No, brilliant. So Phil, thank you so much for joining us on our first Euro special. We're going to ask you a load of other questions as we go through these weeks, because they're fascinating to hear kind of the inside. The last question, and we'll round it off on this question, is: so you've got one game under your belt. You've done pretty well. What is the feeling like about when do I get the next appointment? Am I looking for? Do you look at the games and you think, oh, it'd be nice to get that game? And do you get disappointed if it was a lesser game? Or like, what are the feelings that you're thinking as the new appointments come out?
I can only speak for myself, but an appointment is an appointment. Yeah. If it's not Germany, Portugal, which I would say is a top game, or if you had an Italy against Spain or something like that, people perceive those as top games. But any appointment was me officiating, and I loved officiating. Otherwise, you're just waiting and waiting and waiting. And the only thing to be mindful of is that every day referees are training. It's either a build up to the match day, or like a recovery after match day, and then you're going through basic training every day, physical fitness, bits and pieces like that. So what you want to do is stay fit, and so you're fully prepared for that very next game. And what we're seeing already from UEFA is that they're it's not like a season where you're given all the appointments in one hit. It's basically done every couple of days. So Michael Oliver has obviously had to wait a while to get his first appointment, and other referees have had their second. But that's not to say, oh, should we read something into that? Not at all. That's just that UEFA are making appointments game by game. We've got 3 home international teams involved, so that limits the appointments to our guys. But I'm fingers crossed that all goes well for them.
No, brilliant. So Phil, thank you so much. Jon, thank you for your time, and we'll catch up again probably at the end of the group stages, and we'll talk through anything that happens there. Okay. Phil, a pleasure. Thank you very much, and great insightful for everyone on the pod.
Cheers, guys. Take care.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Phil Sharp, assistant referee from the 2002 World Cup final. Watch my course on Officials United.